We teach people and we train them how to treat us. We teach other people how to treat us by the things that we are willing to put up with. Our children, our friends, our coworkers, our boss, our team, our spouse, like everywhere. So if we're going to establish healthy boundaries, what is the best way to establish them? Through conversations. Hello again, prosperity seekers, and welcome to another episode of The Prosperity Approach. I am your host, Allyson Chavez, and we have been having a conversation about prosperity in relationships, what it looks like, what disempowered or the scarcity approach to relationships looks like. And today I want to talk about healthy boundaries and those difficult conversations that we tend to think have to happen in order to establish those healthy boundaries. So first, a little bit of background. I am probably the most conflict avoidant person ever. If you remember a previous episode, I shared that when I wanted to go to London, Jeremy told me it was very selfish of me to want that, and I agreed with him. That's how conflict avoidant I have been through my whole life. I just want to keep the peace. I was known as the peacemaker growing up in my family. And with all the dynamics in my family, that was no small job for a young girl to have to be in charge of, which made me a people pleaser, quite honestly. I wasn't able to really say what I felt for fear of hurting people's feelings. In fact, that's one of the first memories I have as a little girl of don't hurt their feelings, don't hurt their feelings, don't hurt their feelings. And so I would not say things that could offend anyone in any way possible. In fact, I would go so far as to think through conversations in my mind before they happened. And then okay, what can I do to fly under the radar? I got to keep my nose clean. Don't hurt people's feelings. Don't offend them. Don't do anything wrong. And then you won't be getting in trouble. So I really wanted to stay out of trouble. And any time that my dad said, hey, we need to talk. You want to talk about massive anxiety attacks going on, because what does that translate to? The whole we need to talk translates to you're in trouble. And so when Jeremy and I got married and he would want to talk about something that he'd like to improve in our marriage, every time he would say, hey, I want to talk to you after work, I'm like, oh crap, what did I do? Oh no, I'm in so much trouble. Like the anxiety would just ratchet up. And he finally got to the point where he was like, you're not in trouble. I'm not your dad. Okay. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk to you. And then I was always in trouble, actually. At least that's how I interpreted it, because it was always, an argument about money or sex or whatever it was. But he was looking at it as like, I want to improve our relationship. I want to improve our communication and our level of intimacy. And, he was coming at it with a very pure motives. But when he approached it as we need to talk, or I need to talk to you, and then it was, what do I need to fix? This is my fault. I've made you unhappy. So there's a little bit of background there. I am a recovering people pleaser. Interestingly enough, even from when I was younger, I had a strong enough sense of self, and I don't know how I got it with my background, but I guess I just came with it. I've had pretty healthy boundaries. I wasn't a doormat for people. People didn't know that they could take advantage of me. Like nobody's really done that before. You know how when people are just doormats? I've never been a doormat. And so even though I didn't really have a really strong sense of self, there was at least something there where I've had, for the most part, healthy relationships, and I've had a very healthy marriage, and, not without its bumps, go back to previous episodes. We're not perfect, but we are prosperous and we are powerful. We are a powerful couple now, but it took a while to get there. I hated conflict of every kind growing up. And even as an adult, I do not like conflict. Somebody who has a job in conflict resolution, I'm like, oh, that's like the worst job on the planet. Holy cow, I would never want to do that job because it's all about fighting and it's all about finger pointing and blame and fault finding and people's feelings getting hurt. And I just want everybody to be happy. You know, my mission is to end the struggle and bring joy to the lives of millions of families around the globe. And conflict resolution, kind of feels like a revolution, right? Like any of that, just, like I have to stay away from the media and social media with backbiting and stuff because I have a visceral physical effect with all of that. I just want people to feel joy. It's what I'm here to do. It's just wild that I can have healthy boundaries and healthy relationships. But let's talk about it with the prosperity approach and what does it look like? So if you're going to have healthy boundaries, a really easy question to ask yourself is, what am I available to experience in this relationship? Like, am I available to be disrespected in the relationship? Am I available to being cherished in this relationship or belittled or ignored or always having to just wait for leftovers as far as affection is concerned? Like, what am I available to experience? And here's a little hint for you. Whatever you're experiencing in your relationship is what you're available for. And so there are wonderful things that we're available for in relationships. Like, not even horribly dysfunctional relationships have some things that work for them on some sort of level. And so it's really great to take inventory of what am I available for that I want to keep, and what are some things that I get to explore the idea of being unavailable for. Because here's what I've learned. We teach people and we train them how to treat us. We teach other people how to treat us by the things that we are willing to put up with. Our children, our friends, our coworkers, our boss, our team, our spouse, like everywhere. We train people how to treat us. So if we're going to establish healthy boundaries, what is the best way to establish them? Through conversations. Now, I have been deliberately wearing blue through all of these episodes. About those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see me in all my different hues of blue and my blue background wall, because blue is, first of all, it's a very calming color, but it's also the color of communication. It's also the color of expression. If you're into the chakras at all, the color of the throat chakra is blue, and it's about expression. It's about expressing our truth. It's speaking our truth. It's all of that. So I was like, well, we're talking about relationships and we got to talk communication and conversations in relationships. I better stack the odds in my favor and wear blue through this whole series. If you are not one for difficult conversations, we tend to just push them off and push them off and push them off, right? We don't like those difficult conversations. Anytime that we have to point out, I hate to say anybody's flaws because that's not what it is, but these areas where like we need to improve this or this isn't working for me, like those can be uncomfortable conversations for sure, but they are a necessary part in establishing boundaries and having really healthy boundaries, because we got to get people on the same page. And so the smoothest way to transition out of unhealthy boundaries into healthy boundaries is to let people know, so this is what was going on in the past that I'm just not going to allow to go on in the future, like moving forward. This doesn't work for me. You making fun of me, or you not listening to me, or this ignoring me, or whatever the issue is. Like, we got to get really, really clear. I'm changing the rules, and we need to let them know what the new rules are. And those can feel uncomfortable. Some people call it upsetting the apple cart. But there are times in our relationships when the apple cart needs to be upset. It must be upset in order for you to create the beautiful, prosperous relationship that we all crave. And it's what we're all wired to do. And here's the thing, when you're having these conversations, it's going to feel awkward. It's always awkward before it's elegant. It's going to feel uncomfortable to you and probably to them. But if you can come to them in a place of you know what, let's move through this together. Let's get on the same page. It makes the conversation so much more beautiful and so much more powerful and prosperous as well. And I'll give you an example of that a little bit later on in this episode. So let's talk about fear. A lot of times we fear these conversations because we haven't had them before, or we've had them before in the past and they have not gone well at all. It ends up in this knockdown, drag out fight. You're not talking for days, maybe even weeks. You feel like you have to grovel for forgiveness. Like there's all this punishment that goes on. Like I get that it can cause just this whole, we just want to avoid any of this. But if you're going to have prosperous relationships and healthy boundaries, they do require conversations. And we tend to worst case scenario any sort of conversation that we feel is going to be difficult, right? So we play it over in our mind over and over and over again. And we make up the story as we go. Oh, well, if she says this, then I'm going to have to say that. And what if she leaves and then I'm stuck holding the bag and then I'm screwed? And so there's all of this fear that's around healthy boundaries. What if I push him away and I push him over the edge because I'm holding this boundary? Or, what if everything is just terrible? So here's a couple of definitions about fear. The one that I just absolutely hate is the acronym false evidence appearing real. That is like the dumbest, cheesiest acronym for fear that I've ever heard. False evidence appearing real. Like, what does that even mean? That means nothing to me. Or the forget everything and run. Some people say the F word. Everything and run. There's another acronym for fear. I think that one resonates with more people than the first one. But my favorite definition of fear that really, really resonated with me and continues to resonate with me is anticipation of pain. That's what fear is. It's anticipation of pain. And we are wired to move away from pain faster than we are programmed to move towards pleasure. So you'll do whatever you need to do to move away from pain faster than you'll do whatever you need to do to move towards pleasure. And so that's like, if fear is anticipation of pain, it's no wonder why we put off these conversations. It's no wonder why we put up with being mistreated, not being heard, not feeling cherished, not holding our value. It's no wonder that we do that, because if we're anticipating pain as the result of this conversation, well, we are programmed to move away from pain and to do it very quickly. If you like the conversation here, come have a deeper one with me in my free online challenge. You'll get live coaching from me as you discover how to achieve success without struggle. For more information, go to prosperityapproach.com/challenge or stick around to the end of the episode. So I was having this conversation with one of my accountability partners because I had found myself in a situation with one of my team members where there was just weird energy going on. She was late for meetings. She had never been late for meetings before. She would not come on camera, and we always come on camera when we're doing our meetings. And there were just like little things here and there. Like I could feel resentment seeping out of her, and I didn't know what was going on. I had some ideas, but I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And finally, after about a week and a half of just weirdness, and I felt like eggshells. I mean, we've all felt this before. We know when our spouse or our teenager is in a bad mood and you just need to leave them alone and you tiptoe around them. But I was like, no, that's not going to fly. I'm not going to tap dance around anybody, and definitely not one of my employees. So I sent her a message and I was like, what's going on? Like, there is wonky energy that's been going on. What is the deal? We've been picking up on it. Do we need to have a conversation? And she just texted back, we definitely need to talk. So of course, I'm like, oh, she's going to quit. She's so mad. What have I done? She doesn't like her job. It's just such an integral part of this team. And how am I going to replace her? And like, my mind went there. Tons and tons of anxiety. Well, our schedules were not meshing. And so that anxiety, like day after day after day, as I just keep imagining worst case scenario. And guys, I teach The opposite of this, I teach the prosperity approach. So like, I was totally in fear, totally in scarcity. I'm a work in progress myself. Just because, I don't have it down pat doesn't mean it doesn't work. It definitely does. And I was having this conversation with one of my accountability partners, and I told her what the situation was, and we needed to have a conversation. And I was sick about it. I didn't like having these kinds of conversations because I don't like conflict, and I just don't like this uncomfortable. Like, I want everybody to be happy, but I also don't want to capitulate just to like mollify somebody, right? Like we just needed to clear the air. So we were talking about fear. Fear is the anticipation of pain. And she said, okay, well, that's interesting. What's faith the anticipation of then? And I was like, what? Because the opposite of fear is faith. So fear is the anticipation of pain. What is faith the anticipation of? And I was like, oh, I really like that. And I had to think about it. And I said, miracles. And she's like, yeah, for sure. But maybe relief. Could faith be the anticipation of relief? And at that moment, that's what I wanted. So I just wanted relief. Like the stress that I was in, and this wasn't the only thing going on in my life at the time. We had some pretty significant things going on in our family. I felt like I was being stretched in so many different directions and hard to focus with everything. So I was dealing with a lot of overwhelm, which I know is also created in the mind. Same with stress is created in the mind. But like what I really wanted, like miracles, that's fine and dandy, but I was way too far away from miracles. I wanted relief. And she's like, maybe joy? Faith could be the anticipation of joy or happiness or miracles or love or like any of that. But man, I touched base on relief, that faith is the anticipation of relief. So first, like, what is faith the anticipation of to you? Think about that. What resonates with you? What is faith the anticipation of for you? So we can start anticipating that with that conversation as you're establishing boundaries and as you're having these conversations. They can feel kind of difficult. I was telling her, I hate confrontation. I hate confrontation. Now, an empowered person will confront whatever is going on, right? Confront. Now, confront means to face. So even though I hate conflict and I hate confrontation, because to me that just has such a negative connotation to it, to confront just means to face. So I'm like, okay, so we just need to face this. We need to face this head on. Fear of the unknown is the worst. So we need to know what we're dealing with, and then we can move forward in that. And she was like, okay, so let's just reframe this. Instead of feeling like you're having a confrontation, what if this is just a conversation for clarity? You need clarity here. You need to get on the same page. What is going on in her mind? What's going on in yours? Let's get clarity so you're all on the same page. And then this is about direction. What direction are we going to take moving forward? Are we going to take the same direction? Or is it time for her to take a different direction because she's not happy here and she's not going to be happy here? Because anybody that works for me and works in my company, I want them happy. And if they're not happy in their role or working with me, then I want them to find they're happy, and I want them to go someplace else if that's going to make them happier. But when she just did that reframe for me, it's not about confrontation. We're not confronting. This is for clarity. We're going to get on the same page. And then direction. Where are we going? Are we going to still move forward together, or are we going to move forward separately? Where are we going to go? And oh, ladies, like the relief, the relief that washed over me, like, oh, okay, I can have that conversation. Yes, I can have that conversation for sure. Now, up until that point, she had been stonewalling me, right? I was like, can you do it here? And she's like, nope, sorry, I have plans. So like, she was like totally resisting any of this. And I could still tell she was in a whole lot of resentment. And so we were in a team meeting and asking what the schedule was. She's like, I don't have anything after this time. I'm like, awesome. Let's have our call then. Let's talk. And she was like, oh, okay. Let's do that. All right. So we had this conversation scheduled, this time where we can have a talk. I need to talk to you kind of conversation, but it wasn't that anymore. This is about a clarifying conversation. I felt a lot of peace around it. And as I was preparing for this call and just like getting myself into a good space, because I'm not about fighting. I'm not about finger pointing. but I needed to be very clear about what the boundaries are and make sure that we're on the same page. And I started thinking about the first confrontation I had as an adult with one of my very best friends. And we've been best friends since the third grade. Shout out to Kristen Welch. I love you to pieces, darling. And we were just at a point in our relationship, and we were adults. We'd both married, had children. And my whole interpretation of our relationship was I felt like I was chasing her all the time. So I was initiating play dates and get-togethers and girls' nights and all of that. And more often than not, she would cancel them because things would come up at the last moment. And so I didn't feel that there was an equal energetic exchange in what was going on in our relationship. And I was just feeling so hurt over it, that I wasn't valued in the relationship. And she is a soul sister to me. And so it cut me to my core. And I was finally like, well, I've got to have a conversation with her. Now, remember, I don't like confrontation. And this was, this is a decade ago. But I was thinking about that. And she was like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, well, no, not really. And she's like, oh, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, can we talk? And she was like, yeah, come on over and talk. So of course, I'm practicing what I'm going to say. Now, I have history with this woman, okay? And she is funny. So funny. She's witty. She is quick. And that is one of her gifts. Well, she can also have a very cutting wit as well. So if she's angry, she can cut you to the core. Now, I do not have that gift. I'm not witty. Like sometimes I'm funny, but I'm not very witty. And so like coming up with things just right off the fly isn't how I'm wired. And so I knew that if I upset her, because I'd done it in the past and gotten put in my place, like there was a lot of, I was anticipating pain with this conversation, but it needed to happen. And I realized as I was driving to her house that this was not about how she was going to respond to me. It had nothing to do with healing any sort of a rift. This was about me getting unshackled from the energy of the relationship that I was in. And this was about me expressing to her, because she was going to interpret based on her own filters, her own belief system, her own things that were going on in her life. And I had no control over that. I had no control over what she heard. I only had control over how I expressed it. And this was about my truth. So like this was a really, really powerful conversation for me to have, because I had never done anything like this before. And I was going into this conversation with her fully expecting her to be like, our friendship is over. And that's where my head was, right? So I get into her house and I couldn't speak. I had to whisper. I literally, like my throat had closed so much because I didn't allow myself full expression and expressing my truth and having like really healthy boundaries. I had to whisper because I had no voice. And I said, I am so upset with you right now. I am so mad at you right now. Like literally I whispered, and she just kind of looked at me and I was like, there's not an equal exchange and I'm always chasing you and it hurts so bad because I love you so much, but I don't feel like you have any time for me. And I totally get that you have small kids and you got drama going on in your life, but I need more than leftovers. And like, it was so beautiful because she was so receptive of that, because she saw how difficult it was for me. She's like, Allyson's never come at me like this before. Holy cow. And she was like, I love you so much. And I think about you almost every day and I love you. So anyway, it was just this really, really beautiful conversation. But I thought about how I was just shaking in my boots and I couldn't even use my voice. I had to whisper it to get it out. But how beautiful it was when I was just expressing my truth. And if she wanted to end the friendship, then she could end the friendship. But at least I was very clear on what I wanted out of our relationship. It was so beautiful. So I thought about that before this conversation. And I was like, we're just having a clarifying conversation here. And I'm a praying girl, I'm religious. And so I prayed before our call. When we got on the call, I start all of our team meetings with prayer. And so I was like, can we have a prayer for this? I asked for our angels to be there and their spirit to be there and just so much love so that we could hear each other and be on the same page. And I was like, all right, hun, what's going on? What is going on in that beautiful noggin of yours? And she was just like, boom, here it is. And I had just decided, like, we just got to get clarity. We got to get on the same page rather than me accusing her of things, which would just shut both of us down. We just held this space, be like, this is okay. We're just going to unpack this and see what it looks like. And we're going to keep things and we're going to toss things that we don't need. And it was such a gorgeous conversation. Things that I had said that she heard in a different way. And I was like, oh no, I need to reframe this so you can understand like what I have in store for you. And, and it was some business things, and it was, not important to this conversation that we're having, but we needed to get on the same page. And I needed to know if she was willing to come with me on this version of the journey in my company, because if she wasn't happy, I didn't want her there. I want her to be happy. And she was like, no, I love what you're doing and I love being a part of this. And I was like, well, then let me help you with this. Let me help you shift this. Like, oh, ladies, gents, it was such a gorgeous conversation. There was so much love. There was no confrontation, but we were able to be honest with each other and direct with each other and just lay it on out. And we were both heard and we were both honored and we were both cherished. That is what it looks like when you change it from a confrontation to clarity. We just need to get clarity and see what direction we're going to go. And her interpretation is hers and hers alone. And my interpretation is mine and mine alone. But when you can hold that space and just know, like, here's the rules, here's the new boundaries. This is what I am available for and what I'm not available for. And I was like, hun, this energy you're in, we can't do this. If you have a problem, you got to come right to me so that we can resolve this very quickly, because this isn't going to work in the long term. It's certainly not working in the short term. And she agreed, but nobody was wrong and nobody was right. We were just pointing that out. And after that whole conversation ended, it was about a half an hour, I felt lighter than I have felt in weeks. And I realized at that point, like, holy cow, the level of pain that I had allowed myself to be in because first she simmered and festered in it for weeks. And I didn't do much about it. I just tried to pretend it wasn't there. And I thought, never again. Like, what a beautiful lesson in communication and in prosperous relationships, that I will never again, with somebody that is important to me, allow this low frequency and resentment energy or anger energy allowed to fester for even a day. Like, I will never allow that again, because when I unshackled myself from that pain and went into that immense relief, I was like, there's nothing sweeter than that. Because once I get to relief, then we can go to joy, then we can go to gratitude, then we can go to miracles and create such a powerful relationship and greater communication together. And that was the lesson for me in this, to step up into my role as a leader and not even just with business or, if you are in charge of anybody and leading anybody, but in your own relationships, just really establishing, like, we want to be in this beautiful flow of communication and this beautiful exchange of energy. And so we got to have a powerful conversation. We get to have a powerful conversation. I don't say anymore, hey, I need to talk to you. But you know what? I'd love to have a powerful conversation with you. Let's clear the air. Let's see what's going on. And as we air things out and look at what is going on, everybody is empowered. Everybody wins. And then we jump up into that realm of miracles. Remember what your part is. Your part is to be filled with love, to be very clear, to be very direct in what is not working for you anymore, what you are available to and what you're not available to. And of course, you're going to use your own vocabulary for that. Their reaction and their response is theirs. This is about you being in a higher vibration, a higher frequency, and creating that space for them to meet you there and for you to hold yourself to a higher standard as well in your own boundaries and in your relationships. Remember, it's no more about conflict resolution or confronting anyone. It's about clarity. It's about getting on the same page. It's about what direction are we going to move to from here. It's about unshackling yourself from the pain. and anticipating the great blessings and the great relief that comes from that clear, honest, direct, loving communication. What you are available to, what you are no longer available to experience in your relationships with everyone. That is the prosperity approach to communication in your relationships. It makes difficult conversations so much more smooth. It makes holding those boundaries honoring for everyone. As you honor your part and you let go of what is not yours to own, it blesses everyone. Thank you so much for being here on this episode of The Prosperity Approach. Let me know what your takeaways are. Hop into the Prosperity Experience Facebook group and create a post and just tell me what are your takeaways from this episode about difficult conversations and healthy boundaries. If there's something else that you want me to teach about the prosperity approach to healthy boundaries, to communication, or anything with relationships, shoot me an email, Allyson@AllysonChavez.com, and we can create an episode about it because this is for you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.